if you can simply open your mind to the possibility that there may be a God and that miracles might happen, this strikes me as the most plausible miracle in the world. Because for me, historically speaking, it just makes sense of so much of the data. Firstly, you've got the fact that Jesus was crucified. That's just and died by Roman crucifixion. That's just a given historically. There's really no controversy around that fact. Then you've got the fact that a group of his women followers claim to have discovered an empty tomb. Again, that's interesting because a woman's testimony was worth far less than that of a man in that culture. If this had been a put-up job, it's very unlikely that the writers of the Gospels would have made women the first discoverers of the tomb. That would have gone against all of their sort of aims if they were trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. And yet, if that's how it did happen, that's what they reported. You've got the fact that, again, historically speaking, all of the historians of the era agree, whether they're Christian or not, that people claimed that they had met the resurrected Christ. That you have these stories of Peter and James and Paul. And so again, you may not think, maybe you can come up with a different theory. Maybe they had some kind of hallucination or vision or whatever, but people claim to have met the risen Jesus. That is a kind of historically given fact. And then you've got the way in which it completely transformed the lives of these followers. And they went from being these fearful people behind closed doors to suddenly boldly proclaiming that Jesus, the Jewish Messiah, had risen from the dead. As I say, undergoing persecution, beating, and death for it. And frankly, it was a very weird, surprising thing to say in the context of Judaism at the time. They believed in a general resurrection at the end of time, but this idea of the Jewish Messiah coming back to life, that was not part of the script. So what made these good, God-fearing Jewish people suddenly start talking about and being willing to risk their lives for this very strange theological claim, unless it's what happened? And so I just think there's lots of pieces of evidence that you can put together just at a purely historical level to say it's pointing towards something, and the claim was that Jesus had come back to life. I find that's enough for me. I don't think you have to throw your brain in the bin to say, actually, this makes sense. I think actually once you've kind of opened your mind to the possibility that there might be a God, the resurrection actually, I think, flows quite naturally.
I can't help observing that I think the great majority of us still have a sense that life doesn't end with physical death. So that, in a sense, plays into this story. We don't think it ends for us when we breathe our last. And some do, but most, I suspect, don't.
And death, despite all our efforts, it still is that sort of final enemy, isn't it? It's still the thing we spend an awful lot of time and money and resource trying to put off for as long as possible. And if we were just the product of a purely material, naturalistic universe, that's an odd thing that we're so keen to avoid death. It feels a bit like it's still this intruder in the world. It's still something that seems to go against the grain. So when I think of Jesus and the fact that he conquered what the New Testament calls the last enemy, death, it rings true of human experience. It makes sense of our soul at that level. I think we all want there to be more.